Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. This with Java will be session 7, and this time we're going to be learning about what's called the scanner class to learn how the inputs work and maybe some conditions on this video. I know I promised them on the one previously and I don't think we really covered anything. So anyways, I've got a kind of utility I'm going to go together and start building here for you. Well, first thing we need to do is, as always, we're going to I know we had a continued project here going, and I would like to continue that right here. I believe this was it before. Yep, this is the one before. So we're going to build off of this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically add a new class to this one. We've already learned how to do this. We just go here and right click on SRC or the source, and we're going to select new class. And this class, I've already set it aside. I'm going to actually call this one, I had a different name for it. I think I'm probably just going to name it to user input. I was going to call it like get input, but I'm not sure if that would really, let me just see something, get input. I guess we could just leave it as get input. We'll just leave it as get input for now. That's what I originally had it called. And then we'll leave it in the same package here and everything, which is the com.package here. Okay. We could also just create a new package too. I think we'll just create a new package. I wanted to do this. It's just going to be called input. We don't need any constructor from the superclass in this, and we don't need a main method since we already have a main method, so we're just going to finish this one. Okay, so now we have our get input. First thing we're going to need to do is create some initialized variables here that can be used to access within this class. And this is brand new, so I wanted to explain what a class is. A class is a way of taking information into modules in your program and breaking it up for easier reference rather than just using everything inside of the main method here. A class is going to allow you to basically insert stuff inside of here and access things from the outside. And it's an easier way of organizing your code and stuff like that. I did this for the actual game that I have in here and everything. So I hope that makes sense. Think of it as an assortment of things. Like in a class, you could have like students, teachers, or teachers, student, teacher, maybe books, you know, chairs or whatever. These would all be specific classes, and each one of these constructors, which you'll see me create later, would be in an actual class. Or not a class, but these would be the constructors for the class. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense here. As we start going on, hopefully this will string together for you. So what we're going to be doing first is we're going to be implementing what's called a scanner class. You just type in scanner. I'm just going to use scan as an abbreviation. Most people do use SC, but I'm just going to use scan. And then what you want to do is highlight over here, and you're going to import scanner so they can find this library for the reference. Okay, so that's the only really thing we really need to reference in this class. Now we're going to actually create our methods. You can just go down here and you would type in public. And what public means, it's going to be available, all the members in this class are going to be able to see this actual method, or if you would, constructor. And first we're going to just work on basically what are called, we're going to implement kind of like a default constructor. It doesn't really have anything in it. The default constructor is like the name of your class too. So actually this might not be the default constructor, because the default constructor would be like this actually. That would be like your default constructor. Instead, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be implementing our own constructor. Now I wanted to take this a step further and explain what I'm going to do next here. I'm just going to type it and then I'll explain what this is in a second. Okay. So, what we have here so far is the first constructor, if you would. A constructor is going to contain a declaration. This is going to initialize the value of this. And we learned about if you go back to my video, one of the videos, I think it was like 4 or 5, I talked about strings. And strings are just any characters that are not being used for calculations, but you're just basically using them for output. Like what I did here earlier, these could be strings, and numbers could also be strings, so you could have like numbers in here, whatever, you know. And the numbers themselves are not used for calculations, they're just used for display only. So in this example, we're going to output a string for this actual constructor, and I just called it get user input. So this is how you name it, by using this. Now what you saw me do earlier, the void, that's just if you're not going to use an actual declaration. So if you just type in public get user input, oh, I forgot the void, get void, public void, get user input, and you don't type anything in there, it's just basically going to, oh wait, actually we do have because we have a duplicate class here, it's not going to let me do that anyway. Which is another thing you'll probably learn here. You can't duplicate more than one constructor. They have to be different in some way. So if I change this to something else, like get user input 1 or something like that, it would instantly go away. It would see it as another method, so to speak. So for now, we'll just comment this out. So anyways, let's start building this class so I can or this constructor, so I can go over this with you. So we learned about the system, and I believe it was like the first or second video. System line output is going to print anything you put in here to the screen. So I was just going to say enter some text. And the next thing we're going to be doing is, notice earlier I initialized the scan. What scan's going to do is it's going to, actually I've got an example down here already. You could probably look down here from a previous program I did. Scan is going to basically look down here at the bottom, and see, it's going to allow you to use, like, it's kind of like an input or a cursor prompt, if you would. If you ever seen like your cursor here and you're typing something, that's kind of like what scanner's doing. It's waiting for input for you to type in something. So scan, and you're going to basically initialize an instance of this of the scanner. So anytime it's actually initializing the object itself of the class. So anytime you want to use something, you have to use new beside it, because it's how it's going to recognize it as a new reference or a new class or whatever. I'm probably not using the right name, but anyways, you always want to use new, otherwise you're going to end up with a null value and you're going to get errors and stuff like that. So use new whenever you're initializing a new scanner in this example. So we're going to say new scanner. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say system.in. This is kind of a popular one. And basically this is just a way of allowing input to go directly down, so you can type something down in here as input. So it's going to turn this into a prompt that you can type text in. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to be setting a string. I think I've showed this before. This is going to be a little tricky here, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking this scan here, and you're going to use a dot, and we're going to be looking at the members of this class, and we're going to be using next line, which is going to allow it to create the prompt down here at the bottom so that we can enter text. And what this error is right here is it's still waiting for a return method, which we'll add here in just a minute. Because anytime you don't use a void also, it means you need to use a return to return the value. So anyways, we're going to be returning this string here in just a moment. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be using another system.out. And this time, if you remember from, like, I think it was like video 3 or 4, maybe even 5, where I showed how you can use what's called concatenation, or appending to your system input. So we're going to be appending in whatever we type in on this scanner line down here. It's going to be appended into a line below here, and you see where it says you entered Steven. I'll demonstrate this earlier. You're already kind of getting a peek into the other program I did. So I'm just kind of replicating that one again, and you'll see what happens. It's going to basically print out whatever we type on that line. So for right now, I think that's good. We'll probably just set that up. We'll go to our main method here. We're going to comment out some more code. and we're going to start down here just as if we're starting again. And now we're going to initialize our main class. So inside of our main class earlier, we had all these other variables, so to not confuse you, I'm going to comment these out too. And I could just erase all this, but I wanted you to kind of see, you know, as we've been progressing through the whole program. So we'll just kind of push that down, and we'll just start up here at the top. And remember, commenting is not going to see anything inside the little comment sections there. Okay, so we're going to be using, and we're going to be initializing that method, or I'm sorry, method, that constructor that we just set up earlier called getInput. And we're just going to call it, I guess GT is good enough for getInput. Now what it's doing right now is it's saying, I don't see getInput, you need to tell me where this is. Just like we did earlier, this time we're going to import getInput, so it knows that we're looking at this class. So that's how you basically reference that section. And then we're going to go down here to our main. And I set it as static so that it'll see it down here, otherwise you'll get some errors if you don't. The static will allow you to look down here in code. I might have explained that before, but it allows you to, whatever references, the variables, whatever you set up here, will allow you to see them down here inside of main method. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be, actually I probably don't even need to put that. Let's see. Oh. I'm sorry, actually I forgot another one here, so no, I'll save that for later. There's another method or another constructor I'm going to show you. Anyways, we'll just go down here and say GT equals new getInput. So what this is basically doing right here, essentially, it's looking inside of that class that we just created. So what you'll be doing next is you'll be accessing the members of this class, just how you saw me do it earlier with the scanner. We're now going to be able to do it, and we're going to be able to look down through each of these. So for example, if this one was here, I'd be able to look at this one, I'd be able to look at this one, and so on. And I actually forgot my return here, my fault. Let me put that back on there. Okay, so to get back here, the return is just going to return the value that we can see to the screen. Okay, so we're going to use our getInput, and then what you're going to be doing next, very similar to what we did with the scanner class, when you saw that, to kind of demonstrate, when you saw me do this earlier, right here where it says scan.nextLine, this was accessing the members of this scanner class right here. What we're going to be doing now instead is we're going to be accessing the members of the class we just created. So we say GT, and then we're going to use a, actually, you know what, I need to initialize this first. So we're going to be using this and to print out this name value. So first I'm going to use the name, which I realize I just need to do that up here. See that get user input. Let me see something here. Actually, no, we don't need to do this yet. I think we can already safely get away with this. So, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead because I actually have another constructor I'm going to show you in just a second. I didn't want to throw it all at once to confuse you. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this, let me just clear this window down here. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so it is. Right down here it's saying enter some text, and if you go down here, you can type in your name or whatever, and it'll kind of tell you something. And it's going to basically say your name is average in size, and I think it might be reading my edit program still. Let me see. You enter text. Yeah, because what it did is it went right into... I probably knew I shouldn't have done this, because what I actually do is I have another class in here. I think that's what it's doing, is it's looking at this scanner over here, and it's using these methods right here. This was the one example I did earlier. So, I mean, we could skip over to this one, but for some reason it's because I called the same thing. That's why I named it exactly the same thing, and I think I might have even put it into the same. I did. That was my fault for sticking it in everything into the same place. So anyways, I hope that didn't confuse you too much. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking in this class right here, and we'll probably just have to end up deleting this one. I'm just going to delete the other one just so it doesn't get in the way. Maybe I could turn it off or something. Let me see. I guess you can't hide them or anything. I thought maybe you could like hide the project. I guess I'm just going to have to delete it. Okay. So we'll just delete it so it doesn't get in the way. Now I'll probably end up with errors, but we'll see. So I don't confuse you. Let's go ahead and do this again. Fingers crossed here. Okay, so yeah, I didn't think it was going to do anything because right now it's still looking in here, so it should be reading get user input, but I haven't called get user input yet. That's why it was doing that. So now if I type gt.getUserInput, this is what I wanted to do. Now it's going to safely be able to read the user input, and it should appear at the bottom there. There it is. Enter some text. Now if you type in your name, it only have that one message you entered, and it shows your name. So you saw the edit method earlier. We're going to now add that second, I keep saying method, constructor. Method is another way that they're actually mentioned. Like, for example, if you've done C++ coding, you'll say method a lot, but mostly these are constructors. So we're going to create this second one. We're going to say public. I wrote it down here so I didn't have to lose it. Void check user input. And now we're going to pass in what's basically our first overloaded constructor. An overloaded constructor is these values that you're putting in here, or these declarations. As you put more into here, it's going to become overloaded. Like this is overloaded by 2 different values, and of course this one is overloaded by this. Each one of these can be separate, so you can go down here, as I explained earlier. You could have another check user input string name, and as long as you add something else to this, it's going to look at it as a separate, constructor. So just thought I might want to mention that. So let's go ahead and finish this. And now we're going to use our first conditions. I did mention these, and I'll type this in and I'll explain it. I'll probably have to set up a whole condition for this because I don't want to confuse you a lot, but what we're doing right now is we're going to be checking for what's called conditions, or things that are happening inside of your code to make it go in one direction or another direction. So we'll just start with this one and I'll add the other one in later. So what this is saying is this if is going to check inside of name. Now if we looked here earlier, you see where it says check user input string name. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this just for example and show you something here. I'm going to put it right in here. And then I'm going to go back here. Oh, actually, I can just go over here now and I can initialize it. So get user input, what we're going to do is we're going to call our next constructor, which is check user input. We just saw that earlier. So check user input name. So now it's going to be able to call this name and print this to the screen for us. The only thing right now is we don't have, actually this will work anyway, I think so. Let me see. Yeah, let's run this and see if this does what I'm hoping it does. I changed some of the coding in here. Yeah, I thought there was going to be an error on that. Unresolved compilation. The field component name is not visible. Oh, all this is telling us right here is it doesn't recognize what this name is since we haven't initialized it up here or declared it. So we can actually go here. We could actually create the field name. If you do it, it'll actually create it up here automatically for you. It just does it so quickly. I like that. Now we should be able to go run it with no errors. And then type in our name, and it should get our first condition. And it's going to evaluate, and it's going to check what it's going to do, and I'll explain it. It's going to basically check to see how many characters are in here. If you count each one of these, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters or 5 letters there. You hit enter, and we're getting an error message. Let's see. Probably because I did it, return it or something. Let me see. So it's giving me our first error message, which is saying null. It's saying it doesn't recognize this name right here. Probably because I didn't initialize it over here. Let me see. String get user input. I'm just trying to see. I'm just going to go over here and change this to what I originally had it to before. So originally I had this, just set this value to name over here. Equals sc get user input. Oh, I'm sorry. No, this went up here actually. I had this set. This is why it's basically needs to set this one to name, so it knows to call this one, and then this one is going to pass in the value of name. Hopefully this will work. You entered Steve. Okay. So it's getting the name, it's just not checking it. Let me see, name equals sc get user input. Get user input. I'm just checking. I think I forgot to initialize it here somewhere. See, sc equals new input name equals or gt dot get user input, and then we have gt dot check input name. Trying to figure out why I have it twice here. Let's see, check user input, get user input. Oh yeah, I'm going to pause this video for a second. Why? Look at this. Okay, so I realized it was actually working. So what I wasn't realizing it, I'm used to using like less than. So what it's doing here is it's checking the length of the name here for 6 characters. So if you count this, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was only 5 characters, but this is saying is if it's greater than 6, then it's going to print our message. So if we go here and we type out my actually long name, it'll work. So there, now it says that's a long name. So it's using the if condition here to check the name that we're typing in here. If you go back here to check input here, check user input. This is checking in what you're typing in the name, which is being entered into the scanner class up here. It's basically using this and scanning it into the scanner class, checking the line. It's going to set a string variable for test to implement what you're printing out to the screen, which is test, and then it's going to return that, which is what the get user input does, is it returns the values to the screen. And that's all this is doing, is it's returning this test or the name. So in other words, if you just go here and you just return and maybe name this to name, it'll be the same thing. So let's see, we could change this to name just to make it simpler. So that'll make it hopefully easier to follow along. So what it's doing is it's just returning name. It's doing the same thing. It's just basically easier, making it easier for you hopefully to understand there. So what we'll do is we'll add the second part to the condition here. We could do other things too, but I'm going to introduce else next. Else is saying if it's not greater than 6, it must be less than 6, because it can't be greater than 6 and it can't be equal to 6. Well, actually it could be equal to 6, so if it's equal to 6 or less than 6, so let me just write that down here. So if name is less than, let's see, greater than 6, actually less than 7, because greater than 6 would mean it's actually 7. So anything beyond 6 would be 7, of course. So if it's less than 7, it's going to print another message down here for us. And I'm just going to put your name is above average in size. So now if we run it, it'll be able to check both evaluations of our name. So enter some text. We'll just try maybe David. David should say that message. Your name is above average in size, so the name is basically actually, no, I got this backward. This wouldn't be the long, this would be the short name. Okay, so I realized why I was losing myself here. So let's just change this and revert these so it makes a little bit more sense. Your name is above average in size. I'll just say, instead of average, I'll say, your name is a normal size or something like that. Okay, so now we'll run it and it should go working again when we type in. We'll just try Adam. Your name is normal size. A normal size. Now if we go in here, we run it again and we type in a longer name. Trying to think of a long name. Let's try Alexander. That'll be a long one. So now it's saying your name is above average in size because it's checking each of these characters. If you count as A, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 characters. So that's above 6, obviously, so it's going to print this line right here. If it's less than it, then it's going to print the line right below it. So this one was for Adam. And let me just erase this. This one we used for Alexander because it's longer. You can switch these out. They don't have to be this one first. You could move this up here, and I just made it this way just to kind of demonstrate the length versus that. Now you could also set something equal. Wouldn't make sense in this example, but I'll just show you how it works anyway. So if name equals, let's just say if it equals, oh no, I'm sorry. You got to use the dot length because we're checking the length of it. Your name is equal to 5 characters, and it'll say, we'll just make it say your name is 5 characters long or something like that. Your name is 5 characters long. Like that. So now that's going to basically go again, essentially, and it's going to move through this check user input each time. And what it's doing is it's skipping down to this condition. If this one's not true, it's going to look at this one. Now it won't go to the else unless this one is less than 6. Actually, it'll either say if it's greater than 6, it goes here. If it's less than, it goes here. And then this one's always going to run true since it's not linked up to any of this. Keep in mind, these if and else's work together, but you can also add additional ifs to it to to kind of basically to make your program more interesting. So let's run it again. Sorry for making this video so long. I'm going to have to cut this off. So enter some text. This time we're going to try to make 5 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It should say 5. It'll give you all the regular messages. Your name is a normal size. Your name is 5 characters long. So we can tell our program is working. There's an extra space in here. And everything looks good here. So go ahead, feel free to add your own and try to, maybe make this work with numbers. And all you have to do for numbers is change this to integer. And you'll need to, of course, fix some of this stuff. Instead of using a length, you'll actually use, I believe it's size. Let me see. Name.size, I think it is. Or no, actually when you need to use it, you just use name. Sorry, because name will already be an integer. So, like that. So if your name is equal to 1, then so on. So I'm just going to put that back the way it was, but just to show you for demonstrations, if you want to try it out, go ahead. I hope you enjoyed this video, and this is Steve Morrow signing off.